Keanu Reeves was having a normal day on the movie set. The cameras were ready, and the crew waited for him to walk onto the scene. But as he stood near his trailer, something unusual happened. His phone rang. At first, he thought it might be a routine call, maybe his agent or a friend, but when he looked at the screen, his heart skipped a beat. It was his father. He hadn't heard from his father in a very long time. Their relationship had always been complicated. When Keanu was a boy, his father had left the family. Over the years, there had been small moments of contact, but nothing that lasted. So why was he calling now? Curiosity and worry rushed over Keanu as he slowly answered the call. The voice on the other end was weak and trembling. "Keanu, it's me," his father said softly. Keanu could feel something was wrong right away. His father didn't sound like the strong, confident man he remembered from childhood. His father paused for a long moment before speaking again. I'm dying, son. I don't have much time left. I needed to hear your voice." Keanu felt like the air had left his lungs. His mind filled with emotions all at once: sadness, anger, confusion. Memories flashed before him. The times he wished his father had been there. The birthdays missed. The moments they never shared. And now, when time was running out, this call had come. For a few seconds, he didn't know what to say. He stood, frozen, the phone tight in his hand, feeling the weight of this unexpected moment. Then something inside him shifted. No matter what had happened between them, this was still his father. A man who had given in life. A man who now sounded lost and afraid. "Where are you?" Keanu asked gently. His father gave the name of the small hospital where he was staying. His condition had worsened quickly, and the doctors didn't know how long he would last. Keanu made a decision right then and there. He didn't care about the cameras waiting, the scenes left to shoot, or the tight production schedule. He told the director that he had to leave immediately. He didn't explain much, just that it was urgent and personal. The crew, who had always respected Keanu's kindness and professionalism, understood without question. Within minutes, Keanu was in a car, his mind racing. As the driver took him to the airport, Keanu sat quietly in the back seat, staring out of the window. The city lights blurred as memories came flooding back. His father teaching him how to ride a bike when he was very small. The warm afternoons when they would sit under a tree, laughing together. But those good times had ended too soon, he wondered. Why his father had never called before. Why now, when he was running out of time? Questions filled his heart, but another stronger feeling was there too, a deep sadness mixed with care. He realized that, no matter how much time had passed, there was still love buried under the pain dot at the airport. A small private jet was waiting. Keanu sat by the window during the flight, lost in thought. He wasn't thinking about fame, money, or work. His thoughts were only about a son trying to reach his father before it was too late. He couldn't help but wonder, would his father hold on until he arrived? Would there be a chance to say what had never been said? Every second felt precious now. Time had slipped through their hands for years, but this was his chance to catch it before it was truly gone. As the plane moved across the sky, Keanu closed his eyes for a moment. He took a deep breath and made a silent promise to himself. Whatever happened next, he would not let bitterness guide him. He would listen. He would be there. No more missed moments. Outside the window, the night was dark and peaceful. Inside the cabin, Keanu's heart was full of emotions he couldn't even describe. He didn't know what he would find when he reached the hospital. But he knew one thing for sure. He was going to be there for his father now, even if it was for the last time. Keanu's plane landed quietly in the early hours of the morning. The runway lights glowed softly as the jet came to a stop. Without wasting a second, Keanu stepped out, carrying only a small bag. He had no interest in comfort or luxury right now. His mind was only focused on reaching his father as soon as possible. Car was already waiting for him at the airport. As he sat in the back seat, the driver glanced at him in the mirror, sensing the urgency in his expression but saying nothing. The roads were nearly empty, and the car moved quickly through the quiet streets. Keanu sat quietly, but inside, his heart was heavy with emotions. He looked out at the dark sky and remembered the last time he had spoken to his father properly. It had been many years ago, a short, awkward conversation that ended too soon. At that time, neither of them had been ready to repair their broken relationship. Too much pain stood between them, and too many words had been left unsaid. But now, things were different. His father's voice on the phone sounded so weak, so close to fading away, that Keanu felt a deep need to be there. No matter what. As the car neared the hospital, Keanu felt nervous. He wondered how his father would look. Would he even recognize him? Would he still be awake? What would he say? So many questions filled his mind that he could hardly keep up. But under all those worries was a quiet hope. Maybe this visit would bring peace to both of them. The hospital was quiet when Keanu arrived. The smell of antiseptic filled the air, and the halls were dimly lit. A nurse at the front desk looked up as he entered. "I'm here to see my father," he said softly, giving her his name. She nodded with understanding and led him down a long hallway. With every step, Keanu felt his heart beat faster. He passed rooms where other families sat with loved ones, and he felt a deep sense of shared humanity, life and death, joy and sorrow, all happening in this one place at the same time. Finally, they reached his father's room. The nurse gently opened the door and stepped aside to let Keanu enter. Inside, the room was quiet except for the soft beeping of a heart monitor and the hum of machines. His father lay in the bed, looking smaller than Keanu remembered. His skin was pale, and his breathing was shallow, but when Keanu stepped closer, his father's eyes slowly opened. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other, father and son, both understanding how precious this moment was. Then his father managed a small smile. "You came," he whispered. Keanu's throat tightened, and he struggled to speak. "Of course I came," he finally said, his voice shaking with emotion. He pulled up a chair and sat close, gently holding his father's hand. The hand felt cold, but still familiar. They didn't need many words right now. Just being together meant everything. After all these years apart, this simple act of sitting together in silence was powerful. The nurse quietly checked the machines and left them alone. Keanu noticed the photo on the bedside table, a picture of him as a young boy, smiling, sitting on his father's shoulders. That photo brought back memories of better times, times before things went wrong between them. His father's voice was soft and weak, but he tried to talk. "I wasn't a good father, was I?" he asked slowly, with regret heavy in his tone. Keanu didn't answer right away. He thought carefully about what to say. Then he looked into his father's tired eyes and said, "You did your best. And I'm here now. That's what matters." Those words seemed to comfort his father. His eyes softened, and he gave a faint nod. Even though their relationship had been broken for so long, this moment was healing something between them. They could never go back and fix the past, but they could share this time now. Keanu stayed at his father's bedside through the night. He listened as his father told stories from the past, some that made them both smile, others that brought tears. His father apologized for things he could no longer change, and Keanu listened patiently, holding his hand all the while. In that quiet hospital room, with the hum of machines and the soft glow of the night light, something important was happening. A son and a father, separated for so long, were finally reconnecting. They weren't talking about fame, success, or mistakes anymore. They were simply two people who shared a bond that couldn't be broken, not by time, distance, or hurt feelings. Keanu didn't know how many more nights like this they would have, but he promised himself that he would be there every step of the way, no matter what. The next morning, Keanu was still sitting beside his father's bed. He hadn't slept much, but he didn't care. He couldn't leave, not now. Every moment felt important. His father lay quietly, sometimes dozing, sometimes awake, but always aware that his son was there. A nurse came in and offered Keanu some coffee and a sandwich. He thanked her with a gentle smile but barely touched the food. His mind was too full of thoughts to think about eating. His eyes stayed on his father, watching the way he breathed, the way his fingers twitched slightly now and then. After a while, his father opened his eyes again. He seemed more awake than the night before, though his voice was still weak. He looked at Keanu and whispered, "Do you remember that old fishing trip?" At first, Keanu wasn't sure what he meant. Then the memory came back clearly, a small lake, a fishing rod almost too big for a young boy to hold, and his father standing behind him, teaching him how to cast the line. It had been one of their happiest days together. "Yes," Keanu said. "Softly, I remember. I caught a tiny fish, and you told me it was the biggest one you'd ever seen." His father gave a faint laugh, and for a moment, the years between them seemed to disappear. They were just father and son again, sharing a memory that made both of them smile. "That was a good day," his father whispered. "It was, Keanu." "Agreed, one of the best." His father's eyes filled with tears, and Keanu gently squeezed his hand. There was so much sadness between them, so many years lost. But this small conversation brought a sense of peace. "I'm sorry I wasn't around more," his father said after a pause. "I made so many mistakes." Keanu felt his own eyes fill with tears. He had waited years to hear those words, but now that they had come, he realized he didn't need them as much as he thought. The past couldn't be changed, but being here, now this mattered more. "It's okay," Keanu said gently. "We're here now, and that's what counts." His father nodded slowly, and they fell into a comfortable silence. The morning light shone softly through the window, making the hospital room feel a little warmer, a little more peaceful. Throughout the day, doctors and nurses came in and out. They checked his father's condition, adjusted machines, and spoke in quiet voices. Keanu watched them carefully, grateful for their kindness and care. Every time they left, he would sit closer, sometimes telling his father stories about his life, about his travels, about the movies he had made. Even though his father had missed many of those moments, Keanu wanted to share them now. He talked about the places he had visited, the people he had met, and the lessons he had learned. His father listened quietly, sometimes smiling, sometimes closing his eyes as if he could picture it all. At one point, his father whispered, "You've lived such an amazing life. I'm proud of you." Those words hit Keanu deeply. He had long wondered if his father ever thought about him, ever followed his life from a distance. Hearing those words now felt like a gift, a blessing at the end of a long journey. As the afternoon turned to evening, Keanu helped his father sip some water and made sure he was comfortable. He fluffed the pillow gently and sat down again, holding his hand tightly. They didn't talk much as night fell again. Sometimes the best kind of closeness didn't need words. His father's breathing slowed, and Keanu could tell he was tired. But before drifting off to sleep, his father whispered, "Thank you for coming." Keanu leaned forward and kissed his father gently on the forehead. "I wouldn't be anywhere else," he said softly. Outside, the stars were starting to shine in the dark sky. But inside the hospital room, a quiet peace settled over them both. In that silence, something beautiful was happening. Forgiveness, love, and understanding were filling the space where pain had once lived. Keanu stayed at his father's side through the night once again, watching over him, feeling grateful for every breath they still shared. No matter what happened next, he knew that this time together was healing something deep inside both of them. The next day started quietly. The soft morning sun slipped through the curtains of the hospital room, casting a warm glow on the pale walls. Keanu sat in the same chair, never far from his father's side. His body felt tired, but his mind was awake, filled with thoughts and emotions he hadn't faced in years. His father stirred and opened his eyes slowly. Though weak, he seemed peaceful. His voice was softer than ever when he whispered, "Keanu, are you still here?" Keanu smiled gently and squeezed his father's hand. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." His father looked at him for a moment, as if trying to memorize his face. Then he gave a faint smile and said, "You're a good son, better than I deserved." Those words touched Keanu deeply. All these years, he had carried anger and sadness in his heart, but hearing that simple sentence made those feelings fade a little. He realized that what his father needed most right now was not judgment or blame, but kindness and love. They spent that morning together, sometimes talking and sometimes sitting in silence. Keanu helped his father eat a little breakfast, a few bites of soft food, a few sips of water, but mostly, they simply enjoyed each other's presence. The beeping of the machines around them felt less cold now, almost like a rhythm keeping time for these quiet, precious moments. A nurse came in to check on them. She smiled kindly at Keanu, gently fixing his father's blanket and adjusting a monitor. "He's lucky to have you here," she said softly. Keanu nodded, grateful for her words. In truth, he felt too lucky to have this time, no matter how hard it was. During the afternoon, his father asked, "Can you tell me about your life?" His eyes held curiosity and regret, as if he wished he had asked this question years earlier. Keanu leaned forward, happy to share. He told simple stories about how he learned to ride motorcycles, how he loved quiet walks through the city, how he had found comfort in books and music. He didn't speak of fame or success. He spoke about small things, human things. His father listened carefully, nodding from time to time, a soft smile on his lips. "I missed so much," his father said finally, his voice almost a whisper. "But I'm glad to know now." Keanu took a deep breath. "It's okay, Dad," he said softly. "You're here now. We're together. That's all that matters." The hours passed gently. Keanu could feel his father getting weaker. His breaths became slower, his words fewer. But even as his body failed, there was a calmness in his face, a peace that hadn't been there before. In the evening, Keanu pulled out a small book he had brought, a book of poetry his father used to read when he was a child. He began reading aloud, his voice soft and steady. He chose a simple poem about fathers and sons, about time and love and forgiveness. As he read, he glanced at his father and saw tears rolling down his cheeks. Keanu reached out and wiped the tears gently, then continued reading. The words felt heavy but beautiful, filling the room with warmth and memory. When he finished, his father whispered, "Thank you, Keanu, for this day, for everything." Keanu bent forward, resting his forehead gently against his father's. "Thank you too, Dad," he said quietly. "Thank you for calling me. I'm so glad I came." They stayed like that for a long time, no words, just quiet closeness. That night, as darkness settled outside, Keanu made a promise in his heart. Whatever time they had left, he would spend it here, present and patient. No regrets, no anger, only love. Even as the machines beeped softly and the hospital fell silent around them, Keanu felt something new, a kind of peace he hadn't known before. His father's hand in his, the bond between them felt whole again, even after all the years apart. In that quiet room, it didn't matter who they had been or what mistakes had been made. What mattered was that they were here, together, sharing this time, a father and a son finding peace at last. Another day began quietly in the hospital room. Keanu sat by his father's side, gently holding his hand. The air felt heavy but peaceful. Every small sound, the soft beeping of the machines, the distant voices of nurses in the hallway, felt more noticeable now. Time seemed to slow down, as if the whole world outside had stopped for this quiet goodbye. Keanu's father was weaker today. His breathing was slow, and he spoke less. But when he did open his eyes, he looked at Keanu with warmth and gratitude. Even in his weakness, he seemed calmer than before, like he had finally found some peace after so many years of regret. Keanu leaned forward and smiled gently. "How are you feeling, Dad?" he asked softly. His father took a shallow breath. "Tired," he whispered, "but happy you're here," Keanu nodded. "I'm not going anywhere." As the hours passed, Keanu tried to make his father as comfortable as possible. He helped adjust the blanket, held a cup of water to his lips, and sat close so his father would never feel alone. A nurse checked in, smiling kindly, then quietly left, understanding that this was a deeply personal moment between father and son. In the afternoon, Keanu spoke softly, telling his father stories about the little things in life that brought him joy. He talked about how he loved simple walks in the park, watching sunsets, riding his motorcycle through quiet streets, and sitting in cozy cafes. He didn't mention movies, interviews, or awards. None of that mattered now. What mattered were the ordinary moments that made life beautiful. His father listened carefully, sometimes smiling faintly. At one point he whispered, "You found happiness, even after everything." Keanu paused for a moment, reflecting on those words. It was true, his life had been full of loss and sadness, but he had always tried to find peace in small things. And now, sitting here with his father, he realized that this moment, though sad, was also beautiful in its own way. Later, his father spoke again, though his voice was weaker than before. "Do you forgive me?" he asked, his eyes filled with emotion. Keanu gently squeezed his father's hand and looked into his tired eyes. "Yes, Dad," he said softly. "I forgive you." Those simple words brought tears to his father's eyes. He closed them for a moment, as if letting go of a heavy burden he had carried for too long. In that moment, a quiet healing happened between them. The past couldn't be erased, but forgiveness could help ease the pain. As evening approached, the sunlight outside faded, and the room grew dim. Keanu stayed close, watching his father's breathing slow down further. He could sense that the end might be near, but he didn't feel afraid anymore. Instead, he felt grateful for this time together, for the chance to say things that had remained unsaid for years. Keanu remembered a promise he had made to himself when he first boarded the plane: to be present, to listen, to care. And he had kept that promise. Even though his heart was heavy, he felt a quiet sense of peace. His father opened his eyes once more and looked at Keanu. "Thank you for not giving up on me," he whispered. Keanu shook his head gently. "You're my father," he replied. "That will never change." His father gave the faintest smile, then slowly closed his eyes again. Keanu sat quietly, still holding his hand, listening to the slow, steady sound of his breathing. The night felt long and quiet, but Keanu didn't mind. He knew these were the last moments they might share. He was determined to stay right there, until the very end, giving his father the comfort of knowing he wasn't alone. Outside, the city lights twinkled softly, but inside the hospital room, it felt like the whole world had narrowed down to this single, precious connection between a father and his son. In that small space, there were no cameras, no crowds, no scripts, only real emotions, real forgiveness, and real love. Keanu knew that when the time came, he would have to say goodbye. But for now, he wasn't thinking about tomorrow. He was focused only on this moment, sitting quietly with his father, feeling the weight of both sorrow and love. Night settled gently outside the hospital window. The world outside was quiet, but inside the small room, every second felt important. Keanu stayed in the chair next to his father's bed, his hands still wrapped around his father's weak fingers. His father's breathing was slow and shallow now, and Keanu knew the time was near. Even though his heart was heavy, he stayed calm. He wanted his father's last moments to feel peaceful, not filled with sadness. He leaned forward and spoke softly. "I'm still here, Dad. You're not alone." His father's eyes opened slightly, and he managed a faint smile. There were no long speeches now. The silence between them was enough. After all the years of distance, this quiet togetherness spoke more than words ever could. In that silence, Keanu thought about everything that had happened. He remembered all the times as a child when he had wished for his father's presence, wished for him to show up for school plays, birthdays, or simple dinners. But as he sat here now, holding his father's hand as he neared the end, Keanu felt a sense of peace. The past could not be changed, but this moment was real, and it mattered. A nurse came in quietly to check the monitors, gently adjusting the blankets around his father. She gave Keanu a kind smile and whispered, "He's resting peacefully." Keanu nodded, grateful for the nurse's kindness. After she left, Keanu began softly humming a tune, an old song his father used to play when he was young. The tune filled the quiet room with warmth, and for a moment, it felt like they had traveled back in time, back to a better day. As he hummed, his father opened his eyes again. His voice was so soft now that Keanu had to lean close to hear him. "You're a good man, son. I'm proud of you." Those words made Keanu's eyes fill with tears. He had waited so long to hear them. "Thank you, Dad," he whispered back. "That means everything." His father's breathing grew slower, but his expression stayed calm. He looked like a man who was finally at peace, and Keanu felt honored to be by his side. Keanu thought about all the people who never got a moment like this, a chance to say goodbye, a chance to heal old wounds before it was too late. He felt lucky, even in his sadness. A little while later, Keanu's father whispered one last thing. "Promise me you'll live fully and care for others like you always have." Keanu gently squeezed his father's hand. "I promise," he sighed, his voice steady but filled with emotion. He meant it with all his heart. Outside the window, the night was dark and still, but inside, the small hospital room was filled with warmth and love, a simple, quiet love between a father and son. The hours passed slowly. Keanu stayed awake, watching over his father as he slept. His father's breathing became lighter and lighter, until it was almost impossible to hear. Then, just before dawn, his father took one final breath and became still. The machines around the bed gave a soft sound, but there was no panic, no rush. Just peace. Keanu sat quietly, holding his father's hand for a long time. Tears slid down his face, but they were gentle tears, tears of love, forgiveness, and farewell. The nurse came in again. She placed a kind hand on Keanu's shoulder and said softly, "He's at peace now." Keanu nodded. He looked at his father's face, so calm and free from pain, and he felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The journey they had taken together in these few days had been short but full of meaning. Even though his father was gone, Keanu felt that they had truly connected in the end. Before leaving the room, Keanu whispered quietly, "Goodbye, Dad. Thank you for calling me. I'm so glad I came." He kissed his father's forehead gently, then stood up slowly. As he stepped out into the hallway, the first light of morning was shining softly through the windows. The hospital felt peaceful in the quiet morning, and Keanu felt something shift inside himself. He knew he would carry this experience with him forever, a reminder that even after years of pain and distance, love and forgiveness could still find their way back. A few days after his father passed, Keanu returned home. But home didn't feel the same. Every corner of his quiet apartment reminded him of those final days, of the time he had spent at his father's bedside, the words they had exchanged, and the peace they had found. He sat by the window for a long time that evening, thinking about what had happened. The sadness was still heavy in his heart, but it felt different now. It wasn't just sorrow, it was also full of gratitude. He was grateful that he had answered that phone call. Grateful that he hadn't let anger or old wounds stop him from going to his father. Grateful that they had shared moments of forgiveness before it was too late. The next morning, Keanu attended a small, simple memorial service for his father. Only a few close people were there, mostly hospital staff and neighbors who had known his father in his final years. The service was quiet and respectful, just as his father would have wanted. When it was his turn to speak, Keanu stepped forward. Slowly, he looked down at the small group of people who had come to say goodbye and took a deep breath. "My father and I had a complicated relationship," he began gently, his voice steady but soft. "We didn't always see eye to eye. In fact, we spent many years apart. But in the last few days of his life, we found our way back to each other. We shared memories, we shared feelings, and we found peace." He paused for a moment, emotions welling up in his chest. "I learned something important from those days," he continued. "That it's never too late to forgive. It's never too late to love. Even when time seems to be running out, a simple act of kindness can heal years of pain." Keanu's words touched everyone in the room. They could feel the truth and sincerity in every sentence. He wasn't talking about fame or success. He was talking about the simple human need for connection, for love, for forgiveness. After the service, Keanu stayed behind for a while. He stood quietly at his father's grave, lost in thought. The wind was soft, and the trees nearby swayed gently. It was a peaceful place, and Keanu felt comforted by that. Before leaving, he bent down and placed a small stone on the grave, a tradition he had learned during his travels. A way of saying, "I was here, I remember you." Back home, Keanu took out an old photo album he hadn't looked at in years. He flipped through the pages, smiling at some photos, feeling a sting in his heart at others. Pictures of him as a child sitting on his father's shoulders, laughing, running at the beach. These memories were treasures now. He knew he would carry these images with him forever. Even though their relationship had been full of ups and downs, those moments of love and joy were real and meaningful. In the days that followed, Keanu began to honor the promise he had made to his father. He took time to slow down, to enjoy life's small moments. He spent more time with friends, visited places that made him happy, and treated every person he met with kindness and patience. He also quietly supported charities that helped fathers reconnect with their children. He never spoke publicly about this part of his life, but in his own way, he was keeping his father's memory alive by helping others heal their broken relationships, just as he and his father had done. Late one evening, as he sat on his balcony, looking up at the stars, Keanu whispered softly to the sky, "Thank you, Dad, for calling me, for letting me be there. I'll keep my promise." The stars above twinkled quietly, and Keanu felt a sense of peace settle over him. Though his father was gone, their story wasn't just about loss. It was about love found again, about forgiveness, about the power of being present when it matters most. In the end, Keanu had done what many people hope to do. He had turned pain into peace, distance into closeness, and regret into healing. And as life moved forward, he carried that experience in his heart, a quiet reminder that even after years of silence, love could still speak.